Kendra, and this is
Athena.
Yeah.
And I'm Chase.
Yeah, hi. We're here to read
I'm Athena.
Yeah, we know. And you
No,
know.
don't tell.
Oh, shh. Okay. You want to say it? Okay, go ahead.
I'm Athena.
Hi, Isaiah.
No, don't say mine.
Okay. All right.
I'm Athena.
So, hello to all of our friends, and if you are here, say hi in the comment box so we can say hello to you. And as we are getting ready to read our story, remember you can look in the comments and there are links to all of our kids' resources for this week, from nursery on up through our elementary age kiddos. So you can look there and see them. Oh, you gonna get down? No?
I don't want you to.
Can you just scoot over just a little bit? Okay, there we go. Okay. Well, that's not the worst thing. So today, our next story in the Bible app is called 2 by 2, and it is about Noah and the ark. Oh, and I see Roberta and Phyllis, and all of their kiddos are there. Good morning to everyone.
And Isaiah has a walkie-talkie.
Well, it doesn't work, so that's the perfect kind. So we're going to read our story together, and as we read our story, we have a couple motions that we're going to do. And one, you can probably guess, Noah had to get in the ark because God sent some rain. So every time that I read the word rain, we're going to rain. And also there's a big flood in this story. So when you hear the word flood, we're going to raise our hands up like the water is rising and rising and rising and flood. So here we go. Let's read 2 by 2 about Noah and the flood. It's found in the book of Genesis, and Genesis is the very first book in the Bible. That's exactly right.
Oh, you need all help?
Okay. All right, here we go. You ready, Isaiah? Okay. The earth filled up with people, but they sinned so much that God was sorry he had made them. He decided to send a flood to wash away everyone on earth.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not that. You're right.
Now that's a sin.
No. There was a man named Noah who wasn't like the others. Noah loved God and obeyed him. God decided to spare Noah and his family from the flood. God warned Noah about the flood. I forgot to do flood in the last one. He told him to build an enormous boat with a low roof, 3 decks, a window, and a door. In obedience, Noah built it. So he built, you can see the picture right there. He's building a huge boat called, what's it called?
An ark.
An ark, that's right. He obeyed God. Do you
Uh-oh.
think people thought he might have been a little loony to build a giant boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he obeyed God anyway.
What does loony mean?
A little silly.
No.
God told Noah to collect 2 of every kind of animal.
Mom, I won't out in the water.
Yeah,
Duh.
I know.
No.
1 male and 1 female. So that's a boy and a girl of each kind of animal. Then Noah, his family, and the animals went into the boat. God shut the door. And there you can see a little bit of the picture of the animals getting into the ark. What's going to happen next? Do you remember?
Rain.
That's right. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Water fell from the sky and rose from the oceans and lakes. Even the tallest mountains disappeared beneath the flood. The tallest mountains disappeared underneath the
Mount
flood.
Everest.
That's a
Goodbye.
lot of water. A lot of water.
Mount Everest. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
You can see it raining. But those animals are safe on the ark, and Noah and his family were safe on the ark because they obeyed God.
Mom, I'm ready to have a task.
Okay, well, we're going to do that after this.
I have no room on the camera.
Okay, well, it's okay. We want to make sure that we can see the story. Meanwhile, Noah, his family, and all the animals were safe in the boat, floating on the flood waters. God had not forgotten about Noah, not even for a moment. There they are on the ark, safe on the ark. God sent a wind to blow. The waters went down. The boat rested on Mount Ararat. Noah sent out a dove. When it didn't return, he knew it was safe. He knew it was safe because the floodwaters had gone down. And there's Noah. And I see a little giraffe peeking in there, and Noah's holding the dove.
I thought the dove brought back a piece of land.
When the ground was dry, God told them to come out. He put a rainbow in the sky as a promise that he would never flood the whole earth again.
Well, sometimes floods happen in certain
do,
areas, but just not on the whole earth.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And there they are with the rainbow that shows God's promise that he would never flood the whole earth again. And let's see. It says, here's a question. God put a rainbow in the sky as a promise that he would never flood the whole earth again. Is that true or false?
True.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you for...
It says star student.
Star student, yes.
It said star student, somewhat of like achievement or something like that.
Good. Yeah, there's all kinds of activities that you can do on the Stories on the Bible app for kids. It's a great app for a lot of different ages. So if you haven't downloaded that, go ahead and do that. And then you can read along with us on your own device on Sunday mornings as we read
Did you
as
find
well.
any question? Well, were there any diamonds?
I didn't this time. I wasn't really looking for them, to be honest. Okay, so I do have a couple questions for you, and it makes me super excited every week when I get the answers to these questions. I got some text, I got some Facebook messages, I got some emails, and then I got to send out a special treat in the mail. So I hope that those will get to you soon if they haven't gotten to you yet. And we'll do the same thing again. I have 3 questions. And if you answer those questions correctly and send them to me, I will send you another surprise in the mail. And that's super fun for me to do. So we have a couple questions. Here's the first one. It is, why did God send a flood? Why did he send a flood? And then the next one is, what was different about Noah? Something was different that allowed him to be saved from that flood. God chose him because something was different. So tell me, what was different about Noah? And the last one is, what promise does God's rainbow show? So there was a special promise he gave when he put that rainbow in the sky. I want you to tell me what promise it was. And again, here's my email address, and it will be in the comments as well, knauer@echochurchmd.com. And any way you want to send that to me, if you want to email it, text it, if you want to get your grown-up to record you saying the answers, if that's easier, if you want to type it, if you want to draw it, put it on the sidewalk with chalk like I've gotten. I love to see all your creative responses. You can go ahead and send those to me this week, and I'll get your surprise out for you. We are ready to exit and let Pastor Phil come and continue on. I hope everyone has a great week. We love you. We miss you. We cannot wait to be back together again. Have a super Sunday. We will see you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. You ready to go?
He's ready to go.
You ready? I'll see you a little later, man.
I'm gonna come.
Am I gonna come? In a few minutes. We're not. Yes, when I'm all done on the computer. I'm all done on the computer. We'll go. Okay.
Bye.
Isaiah's Bye, Bubba. Love you. He's, the leader of the house, the benevolent dictator, as we call him. He is heading downstairs to play for a little bit. He's like, I'm all ready to go. Don't know where he's going, but somewhere. We better figure it out. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Echo very live today. Isaiah is in his typical form. This is crazy times, just crazy times. We live in a never imagined. My job would be talking to people on a computer from my living room with my wife and my boys on the screen, but here we are. Glad you are able to log in and be with us this morning. See, a whole bunch of you are logging in. For those of you that are kind of, newbie or regulars to this, thank you for just typing in hi or good morning. It's just nice to be able to. It's our way of shaking hands, kind of. So thank you. A lot of you are already doing this. If you're just logging on, if you don't mind, if you feel comfortable with it, just type in the comments, hi, who's watching, just let us know who's watching with you, so that we can say good morning. I'd love to know what you're planning for Memorial Day weekend. It's a great opportunity for us to, remember and to give thanks for all the different men and women who serve, given their lives to serve our country, and so would love to know what you're doing. It's a little bit different this year, I guess, depending on where you live at this point. If you're afraid you might get outed for not following strict social distancing, you don't have to type it in the comments, I suppose, but if you feel comfortable sharing something you're planning to do today or tomorrow of your Memorial Day, that would be cool for us to kind of interact a little bit over that. So many people. Hey, it's Dad. My dad. Actually, I'm going to get to see my parents. They're up in Pennsylvania, and the rules up there are a little bit more in their county. I guess it's a little bit less restricted than it is in Baltimore County right now, and so we're actually able to get our family. We haven't seen our family in a good minute, so I'm going to take the boys up there in a little bit and go see my parents, and of course, safe social distancing, all that good stuff. But we're gonna be able to do that. Pool and burgers. Moses, I'm coming to you. Well, I guess I can't. No, wait, you're Hartford County. I can come visit you. Pool and burgers. Connie Moore, this is great. Connie Moore says her Memorial Day plans: Bible study and clean out the closets in the yard. That's like, you've got the whole thing covered. I started. As I told you, I fixed our pressure washer. Now the downside is I have to use it. So yesterday, I kind of started pressure washing the cars, and so pressure wash the cars, did some vacuuming. We have a lot of trees and we have a trampoline, so I took the shop vac outside and vacuumed the trampoline. I know that doesn't make sense unless you've had a trampoline near a bunch of trees that drop those little helicopters on it, and it's just, we vacuumed the trampoline yesterday, so now people don't get their face scratched when they do face plants on the trampoline. The Griswolds are with their family at Long Beach Island. Linda is power washing the deck. I am with you. My deck, I feel like I need to pressure wash it every 2 weeks. As soon as I pressure wash it, the birds find it and it looks like I didn't do it. Let's see. Paul Berg. Roberta is working tomorrow, but today going to see her in-laws. That's awesome. Really cool to be able to see all of your plans. Mandy says home improvements and planting. Mandy, you're doing enough improvements in life right now. You're improving, your paying job. You're improving the Echo building. I hope that maybe you could take a few hours and not improve something and just relax. That would be really, really cool. Yard work seems to be the theme. Yeah, it's just one of those things, like, I don't really have an excuse to not tackle the endless list of home improvement chores and tasks here at our place too. We've got a list. It gets more complicated with boys, because some of the stuff you just can't have your kids running underfoot the whole time while you're doing it, and so that's tough. Kendra and I always have these things we want to tackle, or we want to do, or we want to clean out, or we want to reorganize, and just not just finding the time, but finding the time to focus, because we're of the type that once you start the project, you want to bring it through to the end. It's not something you can do in stages, and so maybe we'll knock some of those things out. We want to, like I said, my boys and I, we're going to go up to Pennsylvania today and see my brother and my sister and their kids and my parents and my grandparents. I think my grandparents are going to be there, not entirely sure. Just going to have a family cookout, just spend some time with our family, and then we'll come back to Baltimore and go back into quarantine, at least for, let's see, it is 10:05 today. And so, this can change in any minute. So, you got to stay tuned. But those are our plans. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody here. But yeah, yard work, I know it doesn't sound exciting, but I like yard work because, I have a job where you can't always at the end of the day say, let me look at what I accomplished. In fact, some of you have that kind of a job where you don't get the immediate feedback at the end of the day saying, I did this and here are the results. So sometimes for me, like mowing the grass or, cleaning up some tree limbs or, spreading mulch or whatever like that, it's satisfying because I'm like, I did that today. And then 2 days later, after it rains, it looks like you hadn't been out in the yard at all. So, that's kind of how it goes for us. So glad, man, lots of you are watching today. So cool. On the Burke Backyard Retreats, main operator has a knack for constant improvement. That's very well said, Deanna. So I hope you're all doing well. A couple of things I want to share with you today. I made a decision yesterday while I was pressure washing the car that I was going to switch up the order in which I'm going to do our last two parts of this little teaching series that we're doing. So I'll share that in a second. I'll start off with a good update from Wayne Leatherman, who is our facility vision team guy who's in charge of pretty much making sure the contractors are getting work done at the I'm sorry, I'm terrible at multitasking. I'm getting worse at multitasking when I'm getting older, so I'm trying to keep the computer on. I've got one device that has the feed on. I've got another device that has my notes, and now I'm trying to remember where I put everything and which are in text messages. Some people sent me emails to read. Some people sent me texts. So just, I used to think I was pretty technologically savvy, and now I need my 8-year-old to repair all my devices. Here's an update from about the Echo Ministry Center. For those of you that are new to Echo, we're in between homes right now. We have met for like the last 8 or 9 years, we've met at Perry Hall High School, but thank God we have an opportunity now to move into something that it's a more permanent location for us, a more permanent space for us that we can occupy. And so that is it's in the construction process. They're getting it ready for us. Here's an update this week. Work continues. The team, our facility vision team, is focused on getting approval from the fire marshal at Baltimore County for the sanctuary chairs we want to order. So pray for that. He needs to approve the ganging mechanism. Without going into a lot of detail, I'll go into as little detail as possible while still being factually accurate. The fire codes require the chairs, if they're not bolted to the ground, they have to be ganged together. I think it's in groups of 3. I believe it's a minimum of a group of 3. And we have to get the fire marshal to approve the way that we want to attach the chairs. The chairs will not come attached. We need to be able to do that. And so we need to get the fire marshal to approve that. We also need to get the fire marshal to approve the specific fabric of the chairs. So if there's something to pray about, pray that goes smoothly. We want to be safe. We want to obey. We want to play by the rules. Sometimes it's just, there's some trial and error here. So we're learning. The good news, God has been so faithful in guiding our decisions to prevent larger problems down the road. We heard from our contractor this week that they are actually ahead of schedule and the budget is right on track. So we've been praying that we'll get it done on time and under budget. And so far, God has been faithful to answer those prayers. That's really, really good news. Again, we're hoping construction is wrapped up 4th of July weekend. But before we can actually move anything into the building, before we can move our offices, and before we can even begin to think about having indoor services when it's our turn to decide when we open or we don't, we need to have use and occupancy permits. And so those are kind of, once the construction's done, then the county needs to say, here's your permit to actually use it and move in and occupy this space and use it the way you said you want to use it. And then we can go from there. So couldn't be better news. Couldn't be better news. Really thrilled about that. And I cannot say enough about Wayne Leatherman and John Burke, who have been really leading the charge on this vision team, Mandy Hayden, who has just absolutely been stellar. What an amazing woman of God, and how creative and proficient and wise she is at. I mean, she's a space planner, but this is a project like none other. She's been given 3 suites with walls between them. And the rules are we can move some walls, but not other ones. And she has to design a space that works for a church, that a landlord approves, that the county approves, and that our church can approve. And the level of thoughtfulness that she has brought into this project is going to produce a mighty harvest for the kingdom of God. We're so blessed. And Julie Burke has been working overtime, getting all of the tech. I mean, she's spending so much time just considering where should different TV monitors be hung, and how, this last week she and Linda Hartman have been working on negotiating with Comcast to make sure that we have the right bandwidth that we need for internet and live streaming capabilities, and that all our classrooms have all the tech stuff there that's needed. And Rajiv, the way that he is able to keep us on track and develop and drive project timelines, just making sure every little I is dotted and every T is crossed and nobody is forgotten about and nothing is left out. It has been just absolutely remarkable. And then you look at someone like Rebecca Miles, who so gifted in the area of budgets and numbers and forecasting and finances, and how she's been able to work together with our team to track every penny that comes in and goes out and keep this project on budget. And not only that, but to anticipate and project accurately so that we don't get ahead or behind of where we need to be. I've got to tell you, I have no more hair left to lose in general in life. And this team has been a godsend to Echo. God's gifted me in the area of vision and being able to see and dream, and strategy and developing leaders. There's certain gifts, though, that I don't have, that if I decided we're going to take on this building project and I'm going to be the one who's going to make all the decisions, we wouldn't get the very best out of this. But there are men and women who are investing hundreds and in some cases thousands of hours, who've made a 2-year commitment and have stayed on probably to a total of 4 years. To be able to see this thing through to the end. And so I'm just so grateful to that team. I hope you will reach out to the ones of those names. Maybe one of those names that I mentioned is somebody you know pretty well, or maybe you mention all of them. Tell you what would make me really happy as a pastor. Go out of your way to just say thank you. Let them know you're praying for them. Let them know how much you appreciate them. They have a very difficult job, but they have such wonderful attitudes. And think about the season in which they're tackling all of this stuff. And so we're literally just weeks away from having this part of God's vision for us become a reality. And so we're really looking forward to that. I'm going to transition and share with you a short message on that we're taking from this series on, the life motto of a disciple, or life code for a disciple. We're going to talk about choosing wisely. And as the application portion to that, I want to talk to you specifically about Phil Nauer's thought process on reopening Echo. Not run this through all different channels, and I don't really need to, but our board and our pastors know where my heart is on this. And so I just want to speak directly to it in a way that is recorded and that you can play back over and you can review. I want to answer your questions clearly, as the ones that I can answer clearly. The ones I can't answer today, I'll tell you that, and I'll tell you why. And I want to put your minds at ease about what I'm going to use plans in quotation marks, because it's not really too wise right now to put plans in concrete, because the rules, as you know, the rules for what we can and we can't do, or we should and we shouldn't do, have been changing almost as quickly as the ink dries. And so, but there's just a lot of, I think there's just some space right now for me to just share my heart with you today. So this will be a little bit different. The way that everything I do right now feels different to me, but the way I'm going to talk to you feels different. I just felt like instead of talking this week about living honorably, because remember, our 6 words, I'm trying to give you 6 words that will be a good training tool for you to carry around when you're making decisions. And those 6 words that we're talking about are stay blessable, live honorably, choose wisely. And I'm a linear guy, so I like to go 1, 2, 3, but I'm actually going to teach these 1, 3, 2. Last week we talked about staying blessable. I was going to talk to you about living honorably, but yesterday I felt like, you know what? The more timely one for this week is choose wisely. So question, have you ever played the hypothetical game of the genie and the 3 wishes? If you find a lamp and you rub the lamp and the genie comes out and the genie gives you 3 wishes, any 3 wishes, what 3 wishes would you ask the genie to grant? I think ever since I was a kid, that was like the first icebreaker I ever learned. And never found the lamp. I've never had the genie come out. This is not a real life thing, but fun game to play. Answers have changed over the years. The one answer, though, that we take off the table is you can't ask the genie for unlimited extra wishes. Not that one doesn't wash. You can't use that one in the game. And I've shared this with some of you before. Probably about 2 months ago, I think it was back in February. I was driving somewhere on Friday, and I had the radio on, and I was listening to ESPN radio, and I was listening to a little bit of the Dan Le Batard show. He is a journalist from Miami, has a talk show on ESPN, and it's an interesting show. It's sarcastic and very cynical. Just a very interesting mirror on a certain segment of our population who think like Dan Le Batard thinks. And he was playing this game with celebrities on his show. He was playing the 3 wishes game. And so as he had different commentators and celebrities call in that day, he was asking them the question. And over the course of an hour or two, they whittled down all the answers. And basically, they kind of agreed that the top 3 answers they had to what you would do if the genie gave you 3 wishes were wealth, health, and world peace. There's a couple other ones that were close to the finals, but they said basically that's what it boiled down to. If you could have wealth, financially be taken care of and not have to worry about finances anymore. If you could have your health, I mean, some of them were talking about living indefinitely. They got way down on a rabbit trail on that one. But basically it boiled down to, if you could be wealthy, you could be healthy, not get sick, and you could have world peace. That would cross off the list for the very best things they could wish and hope for. Now, as an aside, I'm like, as a believer, as a follower of Jesus, that's my future. I don't need a genie for that. That's my future. That is what Christ promises us. Eternity is going to be like that. We will not have to worry about finances. We will have our health forever. There will be peace. As an aside. But what's interesting to me is, the reason why that game is so fun is because we all know there's no lamp that you're going to find with your metal detector at the beach this summer. Rub it and the genie's going to come out. That's what's fun about it. It's just kind of it's an interesting game. It's more of a game to take a temperature on where people's values are. However, there is a human being. There's a real historical account of probably the closest approximation to that scenario. There was actually a man who God came to this man and said, I am so pleased with you that you can ask me for anything you wish and I'm going to give it to you. And many of us who have studied the Bible know that the identity of that man is Solomon, King Solomon, David's son, who was king of Israel. And in 1 Kings, we read the account of how God, Solomon pleased God's heart. And God came to Solomon and said, ask me for anything you want, anything at all, and I give it to you. And what's interesting is he didn't name any of those top 3. He didn't name wealth. He didn't name health. He didn't name world peace. You know what he valued more than anything else? You know the answer. Wisdom. He said, the one thing you can give me is wisdom. And what I want you to see is that should jump out at all of us, because I don't know if we were really honest with ourselves and we were really honest with God, when we come to God in our prayer life and we start prioritizing our needs and we lift them to God, and he invites us to do this. He invites us to cast our cares and our needs to him because he cares for us. I don't know that wisdom is on the tip of our tongue all the time. And yet the Bible consistently values and places a premium on wisdom even above material wealth, even above education, even though the Bible, study to show yourself approved is what Paul says to Timothy. And a lot of angry faces today. I don't know why you're all angry at me. You keep getting, I'm seeing the angry face emoji flying up. I'm not even being that controversial yet. Give me some time and then we'll see the angry faces. What's interesting to me is that the Bible places an enormous premium on wisdom. And if you and I are truly Christians, which means we're followers of Christ and we're disciples, which means we're students of Jesus, then we should sit up and take notice and say, we ought to place a higher premium on acquiring wisdom than what we do currently. In fact, we ought to be chasing wisdom with even more passion and attention and focus than many of us chase money or success or education or material wealth. Or it seems like wisdom is the thing that the people who walked closest to God sought him for more than any other commodity. That's how important the Bible says wisdom is. So what is wisdom? I've heard a lot of awesome definitions. I've taught on wisdom. I've heard great teaching on wisdom. I don't know that I've heard any one definition of wisdom. I feel like has different facets of a definition that if you need to capture a couple definitions together to get a true mosaic of what it is. I think one of the ones I've heard most commonly in my life is wisdom is the application of knowledge. It's applying what you know. In other words, it's different from just knowing stuff. And there go the angry faces again. Thank you for those. Wisdom is the application of what you know. So it's not just knowing stuff. In other words, you can know a ton of stuff. You can have a lot of degrees hanging on your wall. But if you're not taking that knowledge and then using it appropriately, that knowledge is doing you no good. Let me think of it this way for you science nerds, and I'm one of them. Do you remember back in science class when you talked about the two different kinds of energy, potential energy and kinetic energy? I know one of our guys was teaching their son about that when they were building a Pinewood Derby car. Potential energy is, the boulder on the top of the mountain getting ready to tip over the edge. It is set up to be able to just have a lot of energy, but it's not actually put into motion yet. And then when it rolls down the mountain, that potential energy changes to kinetic energy. To me, that's a loose approximation of the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is potential energy. Wisdom is that knowledge in motion. It's kinetic. It's kind of the kinetic component of that. But another way an additional way that I have come to understand wisdom is necessary for multiple choice answers where there's more than one correct answer. Not every choice you make in life requires wisdom, but you do need wisdom to recognize the differentiation between a wisdom choice and what I call an integrity choice or an obedience choice. For example, to tell the truth or not to tell the truth doesn't require wisdom. It requires integrity. It requires obedience. If you're a follower of Christ, you understand that is part of the character of Christ. And so it doesn't require wisdom. It requires integrity, obedience. Other decisions to wear this hoodie or the other hoodie today doesn't really require wisdom, doesn't really require obedience. Those are kind of just amoral decisions. They're not really morally based. When there's a clear-cut right and wrong, you don't need wisdom. When there's a clear-cut holy and unholy, righteous or unrighteous, pleasing to God or unpleasing to God, wisdom isn't the main thing you need. You need integrity. You need some sense of knowledge to know the difference between right and wrong. You need obedience. That's what you need. Don't need wisdom for those. But then there's other choices you'll have to make in life where it's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. It's more of what we would call a gradation. There's a good, a better, and best option, and bad, worse, and worst options. And there might be multiple blessable, respectable, God-honoring choices you can make. And then being able to differentiate among those, the most appropriate one for you requires wisdom. For example, when it comes time to reopen Echo, And we'll talk about this in a second. There are probably good, better, and best ways we can go about doing that. And there are bad, worse, and worst ways. And it requires wisdom, because what do we want? We want to get into that bucket of the choices that are among the best choices we can make. Not just the good ones or the better ones. We want to try and get to the best ones. That requires wisdom. And the reason why wisdom is so valuable is because it plays into choices. And if you've hung around us long enough, and if you think long enough, you recognize my life is the sum of my circumstances and my choices. And I have little to nothing to do with my circumstances, but man, do I have a lot to do with my choices. And every choice you make is going to require either a certain level of knowledge or obedience, or a certain degree of wisdom. And the more wisdom you have, the better choices you're going to make. And that's going to keep you on a better trajectory in your life as you're trying to move towards Christ. Christianity doesn't own the market on wisdom. You don't have to be a Christian to be wise. But Christianity promises you and gives you access to the most wise in all of the universe, to the Heavenly Father, who invites us to ask him for wisdom, and he'll give it to us. So, that's why wisdom is so important, because it helps you make better choices. It helps you make the best choices. And those choices determine the quality of the life that you live. So wisdom is that missing link. Wealth doesn't make better choices for you. It might give you the opportunity, it might open up some more options, but wealth in and of its own doesn't do that. Education in and of itself, it can give you the potential to make better choices. But if you don't apply what you know, we end up with that phrase. What's that phrase? You knew better. The person who has knowledge and doesn't apply it is a fool. The person who doesn't have knowledge but makes an unwise choice, they're ignorant. But the person who has knowledge and applies it properly, that's wise. And that's the one that I want to be. I want to chase after wisdom. So how do I get it? How do I become more wise? Well, the main way, and this is awesome and it stinks at the same time, the main way you get wisdom is by getting a lot of experience. Maturing, getting older. The reality is the older we get, the more wise we should become, because we've lived enough life and we've had enough experiences to store up a record of how choices impact outcomes. And you'd think that the more repetitions you have in life, or the more times we orbit this blue marble, we should be storing up more and more and more experiences, being able to look back and say, I've done that 1,000 times, and I know not to do it this way. I know to do it this way now. The main way that you get wisdom is experience and getting older, and that doesn't matter. You can be old and a fool, and you can be young and wise. It's just the frustrating part, especially for someone like me coming up in ministry, was, when I was 21 years old, I had a full-time job in ministry. I wasn't old enough to rent a van, but I could take kids out of the country on a missions trip. And I didn't automatically look to people as someone who was wise. I had a lot of education. I didn't have a lot of experience, and I needed to fast track getting wisdom. And if the only way you can get wisdom is through your own personal experience and getting older, then a lot of us are going to be shut out and disqualified from getting wisdom we really need. So there's other ways you can get wisdom. You can get wisdom by listening to other people's experience. People can impart wisdom to you if you listen, if you ask them, if you humble yourself to stay teachable. If you're not teachable, you're not going to get any wisdom. If you think you know everything already, first of all, you're a fool. And second of all, you're not going to get wisdom, which is why teachability is one of those 3 core character competencies we all need to have. Stay teachable. If you can stay teachable, listen, everybody can teach you something. They're either going to teach you the way to do it or the way not to do it. And both of those things are equally valuable. So stay teachable. Be a student of other people's experience. But as Christians, we know this. The Bible, if it has, depending on your translation, the Bible has at least 500 references to wisdom, being wise. Wisdom, being wise, getting wise, being foolish. It has at least 500 references to it. So it's a treasure trove of that. But James also gives us, the book of James also gives us this awesome invitation that I've taught on before in James chapter 1. If any of you lacks wisdom, and that's all of us, no matter how much you have, you still lack some. If any of you lack wisdom, ask God and he'll give to you. So there is this other way you can get wisdom. You can get it through your own life experience. You get wisdom through processing your failures after you fail. Right, after you've beaten yourself up and said, man, I blew it over here, or that went wrong, the wise person says, why did it go wrong? How did it go wrong? What could I have done differently? And how can I memorialize this failure in my mind in such a way that I don't repeat it? Because guess what? The first time you fail, it's probably a result of ignorance. But the second time, if you fail in the same situation all over again when you knew better, that's a result of foolishness. You remember, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. That's kind of where those statements come from. But the way that God says you can get wisdom that is beyond your chronological ages, you can ask him and he'll tell you. But the test is, what do you do with what he tells you? What do you do with what he shows you? Sometimes he reveals to you wisdom from what you're reading in the Bible. Sometimes he'll reveal it to you when you pray. Other times, God will reveal wisdom to you by giving you the ability to discern what you're hearing from teachers, from leaders, from pastors, and from others. He'll open up your ears and bring it into your life in another way. When it goes through the filter of your ears and your spirit, you get the wisdom you need to choose wisely. When you have a choice to make where there are multiple possible correct answers, you need wisdom. You need wisdom. So how does that relate to Echo today? Let me just close out and transition in this next little chat by reading to you something I just want you to soak in this week. Write this down. James chapter 3, verses 13 to the end of the chapter. It's only like 5 or 6 verses. This is not the most often taught section of the Bible on wisdom. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you some identifying characteristics for how you recognize nuggets of wisdom when they come your way. Because there's a wisdom the world offers, and there's a wisdom that God offers. The world's version of wisdom sounds very similar, but it's all about getting you ahead. It's all about selfish ambition. It's going to teach you how to make decisions that are going to put you towards the best, but that best is to your personal gain, to get you wealthy, healthy, powerful, to get you what you want. There's a wisdom that comes from God. And so that James is he's very ahead of his time, in that he actually differentiates between 2 different kinds of wisdom. And you've got to have discernment in your heart to differentiate between the 2. He actually writes out, here's what makes God's wisdom different from secular wisdom. Here it is. If you're wise and you understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life. Next week's message. Prove your wisdom by doing good works with the humility that comes from wisdom. Not everybody who's out there doing good works is doing it with humility. They're doing it because they have an agenda to be noticed as somebody who's doing good works. And that's a different kind of wisdom. But if you're bitterly jealous and there's selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up the truth with boasting and lying. For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Those things are earthly, unspiritual, and listen to this, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you'll find disorder and evil of every kind. I really want to go off on a tangent on this, but I'm not going to. I'll come back to that at another Sunday. But the wisdom from above is, first of all, it's pure. God's wisdom is pure. It's also peace-loving. It's gentle at all times. Listen to this statement. God's wisdom is willing to yield to others. Do you understand that there is a time where you could push your way across and win, but there's also a time when the wise decision is simply to yield to others? It's full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism, and it's always sincere. It's never duplicitous. There's never a hidden agenda to God's wisdom. God's wisdom is never going to be something that you're going to use to disguise ulterior motives to manipulate your way forward. And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. So, what does this have to do with the conversation about the decisions to reopen Echo? The best question is that I have to wrestle with is, what is the wise decision for us to make regarding reopening Echo? And let me just put a caveat in here. Echo is not closed. We've never been closed. I don't like that. Our church has not shut down. The facility where we meet or where we've met that we rent, which is a government facility, has been shut down. It's not been shut down because there is a law against us worshiping God freely. It is shut down because we are in a global pandemic. There are people sick and dying with a disease that is spreading when people who carry the disease, knowingly or unknowingly, pass it along to someone else. This is a unique, extreme time that none of us have ever lived through before. And as a result of that, we are advised and we are required to not assemble in groups of a certain size for a certain period of time. So our church has not been closed. My faith is not closed. My faith doesn't depend upon Perry Hall High School being open on a Sunday morning for me to worship God openly and lovingly. Okay, so we're not closed. Your staff, your pastors, your directors are working more hours now than they probably ever have before. Where we used to be working 5, some of us 5.5, 6 days, we're working 7 days. We're working morning, noon, and night. We are trying to figure out technology. We are caring for people. We've put together care baskets for over 1,000 frontline workers that are going out. I'm sorry, not over 1,000. We spent over $1,000 this week to put together care baskets that are going out to like 150 healthcare workers in 7 different locations over this county. We are organizing church services. We're doing Bible studies. We're recording videos, which takes a lot of time. We are not closed. We are teaching. We are worshiping. We are praying. We are strategizing. We are meeting. We are caring. Our church is not closed. Okay, let me just be very clear. The president, the governor has not, will not, cannot shut down the church. Just can't do it. And if they try to do it, they're not going to be successful because the church will not stop worshiping and loving the Lord. So I got that off my chest, just make sure we're clear. But the question about reopening Echo requires wisdom. It requires wisdom. It's ultimately not my turn yet. Got to wait my turn. Right now, I have a choice. Man, the angry faces. That's hurtful. It's just like how so many angry faces. Like it would be the equivalent of booing me this morning. So many angry emojis. I must really be hacking somebody off today. Right now, my choice to open Echo or not is, to me, it's a choice of obedience or disobedience. Do I obey the civil government or do I disobey the civil government? Civil disobedience is a tool that the Bible says is in the toolbox of Christians. We can use civil disobedience if and when the situation calls for it. We can use that. In my opinion, after spending hours and hours in prayer before the Lord, this to me today, Sunday, 10:39, not the time for civil disobedience. Not the time, not the cause. And when we reopen Echo, we're not reopening it to prove a point to anybody. We'll reopen Echo when it's safe to do so. And the reason we come together is not to make a political statement, it's to worship the Lord, to care for one another, to grow together spiritually, to serve our community. So right now, to me, it's not a wisdom choice right now. Now, there are other pastors who feel otherwise. They've got to answer for that. For me, right now, it's not a wisdom choice. It's an obedience choice. However, there's going to come a day where it's my turn to decide, do we open Echo or not? Here's how this whole thing has played out so far. Let me make this make sense for you. Decisions have been made at a high level, but they get carried out at the lowest level. For example, federal government, they've said their piece. Here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. The CDC, federal government, the president, here's what you can and you can't do nationally. And then they say, but now the governors of each individual state, you guys, you gals, you figure out what you're going to do for your state. And so then the governors say, okay, here's what we're doing in Maryland. Here's what we're doing in Pennsylvania. Here's what we're doing in Georgia. Now, I realize this has come off the rails because there's another conversation to be had about federal rights versus state rights and what the president can and can't do and what the governors can and can't do. That's a germane, relevant conversation that I'm not going to have this morning. But in a vacuum, then the state governors say, okay, here's what the Fed says, but here's what we're doing in our state. And here's how that works. Up to this point, the president, the CDC, the governor, and now the counties, the governor in our state has said, okay, here's the next step for reopening Maryland. Here's the max I'll allow us to do, but now I'm going to kick it down to each individual county executive to decide what you're going to do in your county. And so now you got to know the differences between Hartford County and Anne Arundel County and Baltimore County, yada, yada, yada. So it was the president's turn, and then it was the governor's turn, and then now it's the county executive's turn. It's not Echo's turn yet. It's not our turn. But at any moment, it's going to be our turn. It's going to be my turn. They're going to say, you're allowed to open church. Here are the rules. Here's the playbook. And then I have to decide within this playbook, what should I obey? Is there anything in here that we shouldn't obey? And then in that, with those boundaries and those fence posts, then I have to decide. Phil Nauer has to decide what's wise for Echo. What's wise for our people? And how do you begin to factor all of the various questions and concerns of that? Because here's the reality. At the end of the day, it's going to be your turn. And a lot of us are spending a lot of time armchair quarterbacking everybody else above us and say, well, if I were the president, I wouldn't have said this or I wouldn't have said that. Some of you think the president is handling the situation beautifully and flawlessly. Others of you think he's handling it horribly. And the beauty of this country is you're free to have opinions in that whole gamut. And you can debate, you can protest, you can vote accordingly, you can do all that. None of us come to a consensus on what he should be doing that we all agree to. But at the end of the day, you've already had a turn. Because regardless of what the governor has said, what the CDC says, what your boss says, what your pastor says, every single one of us decides whether I walk out that door or I don't. Every one of us chooses, is it wise for me to put on a mask today and go to the grocery store, or is it wise for me to stay home? Is it wise for me to go to my job? Is it wise for me to stay home? Is it wise for me to disobey the social distancing guidelines because I want to have a picnic with my family, or I want to get together for Mother's Day, every single one of you has had a turn. And you have to decide, regardless of what everybody else, you decide what is wise for you. And the decisions that you're making have direct consequences on your life and in the lives of other people. The most important question all of you and me, all of us should be asking is, when it's my turn, what is wise? Not that you don't have a right to debate about what's wise for the county executive. You have every right to do that. You have every right to debate what is wise for the governor, every right to debate what's right for the president to do, every right to do it. But you know what? At the end of the day, we don't get to make their decisions for them, but you get to decide for you, and that's a decision you're accountable for. Now, for me, there's going to come a point where it's my turn to decide. It's my turn to decide what is wise for Echo. And that's a decision I have to live with. And that's a decision that God made me to make. And it is my opportunity and my responsibility. And I approach that, I don't have enough time to unpack to you all the different things that I've thought about in terms of what's wise for Echo. But here's what I've landed on. When we reopen Echo, we're going to do it respectfully. We're going to do it safely. We're going to reopen Echo gradually. We're going to do it thoughtfully, and we're going to do it lovingly. You have to understand there's a few things that reopening Echo, whether it's in a week or in 2 months, I don't know the answer to that question yet. When we reopen it, there's a few things that as a pastor, I have to accept that are very difficult for me. I've given my life, my wife's given her life, my boys have given their lives to welcoming anybody who wants to come into our house of worship to come. To hold our arms open wide on a Sunday morning and say, anybody who wants to can come. Anybody who wants to can come. In this crazy season we're in right now, to make Echo safe, I have to change that message a little bit. Because we have to say anybody who wants to can come, but there's a maximum capacity on how many people can come right now. And if your body is of a certain temperature, or if you've been exposed to certain things, or if we're beyond the capacity that we can house in this space, there's a potential that we would have to tell people on a Sunday morning, we love you, but you can't come in. And I have to accept that, and I have to think about that carefully. I have to think about what a decision that I would make to keep Echo safe. I have to recruit a volunteer that I love and I care about and say, while I'm preaching on Sunday morning, I have to put that person or people in a position. I have to put that person in a position to come on a Sunday morning prepared to say yes or no to who can come in the building. And I realize that's a reality. You just have to understand that I have to have the Lord's help to be okay with that, because there's no fiber of my being that feels good about that scenario. But it's the wise decision. It's the wise decision, because if church isn't safe, I'm asking people to have an unfair decision on their place, to be perceived as either having no faith or put themselves in a position to be sick, and we're not going to do that. When we reopen Echo, it's going to be done safely. And ultimately, when it's my turn to decide, I'm going to be handed a playbook that's going to have a lot of medical expectations. And I have zero medical training. If you go into my office, I have a bachelor's degree from University of Valley Forge. I have a license to preach. I have a certificate of ordination. I have a teaching diploma and lots of other framed things hanging on my wall in my office. But among all of my framed artifacts, I have no medical training. And in addition to taking spiritual responsibility for my congregation, I have to take physical responsibility for you too. And I don't take that lightly. And so wisdom means there are certain people I need to listen to right now. And then there's certain people I don't need to listen to right now. And I have to differentiate between the two. And so when we reopen Echo, we're going to do so when I am confident we've done everything reasonably possible to make it safe, that we comply with proper guidelines. I'm also having to come to a place where I have to recognize that there's no decision I can make that's going to please everybody. So that's not my goal. My goal isn't to please everybody in this. Because for some people, I can tell you're blowing up my text messages now, like explaining your angry emojis. This is great. The reality is, if this leadership decision is not one you can get on board with, I bless you to find a church that leads you in a way you can get on board with it. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible, and I will answer to God for how we do this. You won't, I will. And so trust me, I am more concerned with his approval than anybody else's. That's not to say that I'm not going to seek wisdom, that I'm not going to get good counsel, but we're going to open Echo when it can be done safely. We're going to do it thoughtfully. I have the best team in the world. There are pastors and directors and leaders, volunteer ministry team leaders. The moment I say Echo is open, every single one of them is now put in a unique position to have to decide, is it wise for them to serve their church, even if it could expose them to something that would compromise them physically? And every single one of our leaders has a story and has a unique thing going on. And we're in this unique season. You and I don't know all of the medical history of everybody who serves in our church. And for some of them, it is not wise for them, even if Echo had all the precautions in the world, it's not wise for those individuals right now to be out and about and around other people. And that person deserves the opportunity. Every one of these leaders deserves the opportunity to have a private conversation with me as the pastor, to share with me whether or not they are at a place where they feel it's wise for them and their family to come back when we reopen. And they deserve to have that in private, and they deserve to have that without the pressure of the expectations of the church as a whole looking up or down on them. Because here's the wacky thing that y'all are going to have to grow in. Pre-pandemic, when someone didn't show up at church for 2, 3, 4 weeks, whether it was spoken or unspoken, the general thinking process of church attendees is, I haven't seen them in a while. They must be slacking. Because, let's face it, for right or for wrong, the two of the most observable ways that we can take people's spiritual temperature, for right or for wrong, is what we give and whether we go to church or how often we go to church. And the general assumption was, if you stop going to church regularly, there must be something wrong with you spiritually, spoken or unspoken. Now, pandemic, post-pandemic, there are many blessable, wise, valid reasons why people may not come to a corporate worship service in the midst of all of this. And I want to reopen Echo in such a way that there is no judgment passed on those who want to come together and worship, and there is no judgment passed on those who say, it's not wise for me to come together right now. And that has to be done thoughtfully, because I don't want to create a narrative where whether you go to church or not is the determining factor for your faith. And we have to hold that in tension with what we get in the New Testament of forsake not the assembling together of believers. I'm down with that. But that also was not written in the teeth of a pandemic. And I think we have to use some wisdom and say, we need to be able to create a culture where people are equipped to make wise choices, and we celebrate wise choices, and we don't dictate wise choices. We'll reopen Echo gradually. If you pinned me down 2 weeks ago and you said, Pastor, what's our plan? I would have said, listen, the governor's put out a 30-page PDF. Pages 25, 26, and 27 spell out the 3 phases of how Maryland's going to reopen. There's a high-risk phase, a medium-risk phase, and a low-risk phase. And during the high-risk phase, here's what he's told all pastors in advance we can do. And then when we move to medium risk, here's what he's told all pastors what we can do. And when we move to low risk, here's what he told us we can do. And here's how Echo is already planned and set up to be able to move in those things. And I began processing that information, talking to our pastors, talking to our board, talking to our elders, pulling a plan together. And then I love him to death, but the governor called a little bit of an audible and surprised us. And basically I took that plan and I put it in the shredder and said, okay, where we're at right now, we weren't prepared for at all. And now it's up to the county. And it's up to churches whether or not they want to obey what the county is saying or they don't want to obey what the county is saying. And right now I'm choosing to work within that. Now, if and when it changes and I feel like a county official would overstep their bounds and start telling churches what they can and they can't, if they go over their bounds, Bill of Rights stuff, I'm going to change my posture just like that. But that's a choice I have to make if and when the time comes. But if you pin me down, so what does it look like? I think, it's going to be gradual. There's a time to hit the ground running and there's a time for gradual reentry. Listen, I know some of you, when you go to the swimming pool and it's ice cold, you jump off the diving board and you get it over with. Others of us like the very slow, gradual entry, and there's a time for both. And we just need some time to figure this out. It's going to be different, and different is going to be good, but we need some time to figure it out. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start when it's time to reopen, when we get to decide. I imagine we'll start with some outdoor gatherings. The good news is I've already got a place lined up for us to go with permission. We have permission to go to 5020 Campbell Boulevard and have outdoor gatherings there. I don't know exactly what it'll look like. We do need to keep within compliance. Our property management company said that, hey, we would welcome you to have church outside here as long as you stay within the codes and you don't make a bigger headache for us or whatever. And I'm down with that. Don't know exactly what that'll look like yet. That's new for us. We haven't done a lot of those, but that's what I think it'll start first. Social distancing is much easier that way, right? We can kind of ease back into this. And then we'll move when it's appropriate, when we can do it safely. We've got the green light to do so. We can do it safely, thoughtfully, respectfully, lovingly. We'll start moving indoors. It's probably going to be indoor services in smaller groups. And then over time, we'll be able to have indoor services in larger groups, and then ultimately indoor services in larger groups with programs for kids and youth. We're way down the trail, even what that has to look like when we start having programs for kids and youth again. I would love to be able to say it's safe to do it tomorrow, but you talk to, we can have a conversation offline about what nursery looks like with social distancing. It just doesn't. So, we're going to do it gradually. When it's time to reopen, we're going to do it gradually. Don't think that we're dragging our feet on this. That's not the case. It needs to be done the right way. That's what's wise for Echo to do. And here's the beauty of all this. You can second guess, third guess, fourth guess, but let me let you in on a little secret. I don't read in detail every email that comes to me or every Facebook message, simply right now because I can't. I don't watch every video link you blow up my messenger with. I don't watch every YouTube video you send to me. I simply would get nothing else done than going down rabbit trails. But I have the wisdom to know which ones to watch and which ones not to watch. I know, I think, who I should be listening to right now, and who among our church I need to consult with to get this right. And I know right now which voices I need to just smile, but I need to tune them out. Ultimately, it's going to be my turn here pretty soon to decide to reopen Echo. And we're going to do it safely. We're going to do it gradually. We're going to do it thoughtfully, lovingly. We're going to do it for the right reasons. We're going to do it in a way where you can feel welcome to participate or welcome to participate online, wherever you feel. But here's the thing. The most important question is not, what should Phil do? It's when it's your turn, what is wise for you? When it's your turn to decide, what's the wise decision for you? You have to decide. And I think your time is best spent praying for your leaders that God gives them wisdom, and then spending time preparing your own heart. God, what's the wise thing for me to be doing right now while I wait? See, for me, there's been wisdom in waiting. Because every plan I formulated, and I've spent hours trying to formulate plans, every one of them's had to be shredded already because the rules change. The plan I just laid out for you right now, something could come down the pipes tomorrow and I'd have to change all the rules. I'd have to change the plan. But I know this. I know I love Jesus. I know I love his church. I know I love my neighbors, and I know I love you. And at the end of the day, that's what's driving all the decisions, not what's best for me personally, not what's most comfortable, not what is the most path of least resistance, but what is wisdom. And that's what I'm asking God for. And I'm confident that I've heard from God. And sometimes he confirms that through affirmation of other people. And sometimes he confirms it because I'm challenged. And as I'm challenged, I feel even more confident that this is the direction we need to go in. And I'm not here to pass judgment on every other pastor and what they're doing with their congregations. They answer to the Lord for that. I don't know what God's told them. Maybe they had an angel wake them up in the middle of the night and said, hey, rip up that cease and desist order on. I don't know. But that angel hasn't visited me and said, this is the pathway I'm supposed to go down. And so as of right now, that's where I'm at. I will not go into this much detail the next time we talk about this. But I thought maybe just for once, I'd let you inside a few of the things I'm thinking about and the tensions that I have to weigh. And the one thing I ask is, please don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. God put me in this position. It's his church. He will supply the wisdom that we need. He'll make things clear for us. But I want to honor him in the way that we have church. And I don't want to bring infamy on the body of Christ. I want to bring glory to his name. And so I want to lead us through this time in a way that Jesus is lifted up and that God is honored and that you can be proud of. And even if you disagree, that you can still respect and honor the role that I have and the responsibility that's weighing on those decisions and the lives that are impacted by what I choose, and my deep desire to move forward in a way that honors the Lord and honors you. So there it is. We're going to open gradually, thoughtfully, safely, prayerfully. We will move as fast as we can move, but no faster and no slower. And we're going to do so in a way that keeps the kingdom agenda on the front burner. I don't want to spend a lot of time splitting hairs. I want to spend a lot of time, because at the end of the day, I can't go down this rabbit trail today. I really wanted to. Maybe next time I can. I don't even know if it's appropriate for me to do it over the internet. It might get me in trouble, but I don't want you to miss the bigger picture, because at the end of I'll give you this, because I got to go. It's 11 o'clock. At the end of the day, this season is not primarily about freedom of religion. The conversation is happening right now. And I'm not to say it couldn't go away, but you need to have ears to hear and eyes to see. What's going on right now is actually far more cosmic and end time oriented than even these things that we're talking about. What you're seeing here is really, in my opinion, this is a practice run for what global government, global finance, global economy, this is a practice run to work out some of the bugs and the kinks in that system. There are some powerful, powerful people who are motivated by a spirit of Antichrist that's always been in the world. It's always been operating. There's always been a spirit of Antichrist in the world, who are looking very carefully at a situation like this where there's a problem and everybody's afraid they're going to die, and a solution is brought forward, and they're watching how this escalates. I don't think this is the end of the world, but the Bible gives us the playbook for where this whole thing is going. And the part that I respond to is knowing that we're so close. I have people I love and I care about that I can see from my window, that I want them to know that they know that they know that they're saved and have a relationship with Jesus. This can be, the gospel will be preached as a testimony to the ends of the earth. And that's the season we're in. A great outpouring of God's Spirit, and then the end comes. So I am fully prepared in my heart. I've seen everything I need to see. I can't stop God's ultimate plan, but part of his plan is that there's a great outpouring for his Spirit coming in this season. And that's what I want us to be ready for. So let me pray over you, and I'll share one last announcement, and then I'll turn it over to the prayer team. Heavenly Father, I love you. Just appeal to you for wisdom. This is your church. This is your church, not mine, not ours. This is your world. This is your government. And Lord, we need you. There's lots of people that are sick, that are hurting, that are scared. There's people who are angry. And they don't know what to do with their anger. God, I just pray for a mighty blanket of your presence to cover over all of the listeners to this short service today. God, that you would just bring a sense of calm and perspective into their lives. Lord, that thankfulness would bubble up in our hearts. God, I ache to be with my church family again. I miss them. You know that. God, I need and we need wisdom to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, the best we possibly can. I acknowledge there are more than one right way to go about reopening our worship services. And I am fully confident in what you've dropped into my heart. But I pray now that your wisdom will resonate in the hearts of the listeners in our church family, and that we can come to a place of being unified around this, so that we don't have to spend any energy trying to get all of our echo ducks in a row, but that we can present a unified church body that stands against the gates of hell, and that moves forward in love and compassion and integrity into our community in whatever degree that we can, so that we can be eligible to be participants in this mighty outpouring of your Spirit that you promised us was going to happen in this season of history. Lord, that we would find ourselves eligible and worthy to be key cogs in that system, to be vessels through which this outpouring can flow from heaven through us into Baltimore County, into Hartford County, into Baltimore City. Jesus, we love you. We trust you. And for that one that might be unsure of their relationship with you, I offer you an example of a prayer you can pray right now. Jesus, I admit that I'm a sinner. I believe in you, your life that was sinless, your death on the cross that was innocent, that was done as my substitute in my place. I believe you rose from the dead, that you're alive today. I place my faith in you. I confess my trust in you. I confess my need for you. I confess my sins to you. And I accept and receive mercy and forgiveness from you. And I choose you as my Lord, as my leader, as my Savior. Father, we humble ourselves before you and we look so forward. God, I believe that you do everything with purpose and everything with design in mind. And I'm thankful that this building that you've prepared for us is just about ready for us to occupy. And so God, help us to finish with you this process that you've started and then open up this new season of ministry in front of us. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. Next week we will be done by 10:30, but I planned in advance, I needed to share at least to memorialize this. So if there's any questions about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, you can direct people back to this video and they can read through it. You're welcome to send comments. I can't promise that they're going to sway me one way or the other. But if that makes you feel that you've done your duty, you're welcome to. Not going to read them today, not going to read them tomorrow. I'm going to spend some time with my family. But Tuesday we'll check those out, respond to those as best we can. Know that I love you, that I appreciate you. Our prayer team is available to you right now. If you would like to, there are the comments, and that you can click on the links in the comments and you can spend some time with them praying and getting some connection there. Thank you for your faithfulness in giving. You just continue to bless God. Like I said, because of your faithfulness, we were able to take some of the additional funds from last month, spend a little over $1,000, and we were able to identify 8 different groups of frontline workers in 7 different facilities that we are dropping off these care packages to them to carry into their teams. And so it will get to about 150 different workers. For example, we might have, like Joan Maldiz is going to be given, one care package taken for her entire team at Good Sam, where she's a respiratory therapist. And so we'll get some information out to you to let you know who we're helping and where that's all going, but lots of different places. Because of your generosity, they're getting care baskets and snacks and goodies and cards and posters from us, just thanking them for all they do, letting them know they're being prayed for. And if they need anything, we're here for them. Some good stuff going on that way. If you want to give, you can send it to the office, or you can give echochurchonline.com/give. We will be back. I'll be back with you Wednesday night to share with you another short teaching in our Another Step series. And hopefully I have more concrete information on what reopening looks like as these pieces fall into place. It changes. It's just changing by the hour. And so we're doing the best we can to move forward wisely. So choose wisely, choose wisely. When it's your turn, what's the wise choices? What are the wise choices for you to make? Love you, praying for you. Hope you have a wonderful week. Happy Memorial Day weekend to all of you, and we'll talk to you next Sunday.